Hi, welcome to the podcast by Dr. Sushma Singh. Let us start conversation on Unit 17, Education, Expansion and Growth. And our topic is Expansion of Education. We have already discussed that growth and expansion of education are closely interrelated terms. The ability of education system to expand or reach out to all sections of society is increasing. Earlier, education was the privilege enjoyed by the elite, but after independence, it was realized that the human resource development cannot ignore large sections of society, and the education system has to be such that it can accommodate the masses. Hence, efforts are being made to reach out to and raise enrollment at different levels of education. For these, educational facilities are being increased. Special attention is also being paid to the education of women and backward sections of society. Alternative means of providing education are also being explored. At the same time, there is an ongoing diversification of educational streams due to the changing social needs and expansion of knowledge base. Let us study some of the aspects leading to expansion of education. The first is expansion of education in terms of enrollment. In 1951, the population was just 36 crores. The literacy rate was 18%, indicates the restricted access to educational opportunities. Today, the population has more than tripled, but the literacy rate having crossed 65% indicates that the scope of the educational system was widened. In 1951, only 27% of males and 8.86% of female were literate, but today 75% of male and about 53% of females are literate. Enrollment at the lower primary level is about 109 million, and in the upper primary level it is about 40 million. There are about 1.705 million and 1.082 million teachers respectively at these levels. The enrollment at the primary level in 1951 was about 19.2 million. It has enhanced by about 5.75 times. For girls, enrollment since then has enhanced by about 9 times in 1996 and 97. At upper primary level, the net increase since 1951 has been about 13 times, while for girls the increase has been by about 32 times. At the secondary and senior secondary level, the net increase has been by 21 times since 1951, and for girls it has been by 49 times. The gross enrollment ratio in 1951 to 50 at the primary level was 42.6%, while in 2002 and 3 it rose to 95.4%. Elementary education today in our country, with 149.4 million children in the age group of 6 to 14 years and 2.9 million teachers, in the second largest in the world. These figures reflect the inclusiveness of education and its expansion. Now let us move to the next point, expansion of educational facilities. In the last 5 decades, the number of education institutions has grown manifold. From 1950 to 51 to 2001 to the number of schools of different levels have grown by many times. It indicates a growing trend in educational facilities. Today, due to the efforts made by during the last several decades, Since independence, about 94% of the population has access to the primary school within a radius of 1 kilometer. We thus see that apart from the growing number of learners leading to the expansion of the educational system, another major indicator of its expansion is the development in the number of educational institutions that are today catering to millions of learners. There are several new dimensions related to the expansion of education. Let us examine a few. The first is development of women education. As mentioned earlier, even during the colonial period, women's education was greatly neglected. Since independence, greater attention had been paid to this, and enrollment of women at all stages of education has been increasing steadily through the years. Since 1950-51, enrollment of girls has increased manifold in primary, middle, secondary or higher secondary stages and higher education level from 28.1% to 44.1%, from 16.1% to 41.8%, from 13.30% to 39.5%, and from 10.0% to 39.9% respectively. Expansion of education cannot be holistic and inclusive if women's education is neglected. Today, there are several hundred women's colleges and quite a few universities only for women. The number of women enrolled per 100 men in the institution of higher education in 1950-51 was just 14, but during the last decade it was about 46. However, women's participation is still below 50% at all stages of education. The literacy rate of 53% is also less than 75% for men. The average number of years spent by girls in schools is also much less than that spent by boys. The situation continues to remain grim in case of women belonging to backward sections of the society and rural areas. Besides lower enrollment of women at different levels of education, another trend that is being noticed is the relatively much lower enrollment of girls at the higher secondary level and above in the science stream and in technological courses. Most of the women learners enroll in the humanities stream. Hence, growth of women's education is yet to catch up with that of men. From female literacy of 14% in 1951 to reach a literacy rate of 53%, it has taken about 50 years. It can be expected that with sustained efforts like Mahila Samakya project in rural areas that emphasize the centrality of education to achieve equality, and the efforts of the government and non-government agencies to enroll and retain girls, 100% literacy will be attained for women in a much shorter time. Now let us move to the next point, development of alternative forms of educational institutions. We have already discussed the growth of institutions offering education at different levels, but today even such an expanded system of education fails to be accommodate every aspirant. There are still many others who have been left behind. Therefore, alternative modes of offering education have been developing in addition to the conventional education system. Education imparted through the distance mode and the non-formal education system are forced to be reckoned with. These alternatives are greatly aiding the expansion of education and are parallel to the conventional system. Now let us discuss the next point, distance education. Since the first correspondence course is offered by the Delhi University in 1962, distance and open learning system has covered a long way. In 1982, the first open university was opened in Andhra Pradesh. In 1985, a Central Open University, Indira Gandhi National Open University was opened, and today we have about a dozen state open universities apart from the institutions that are offering education exclusively through the distance mode. There are several universities and academic institutions that are offering education in a dual mode, that is through face-to-face mode and also through the distance mode. The National Open School provides education at the school level. Together, these institutions are catering to the educational needs of millions of students. Open learning centers have been contributing a lot towards the expansion of education, as they are capable of taking education to the doorsteps of those aspiring for education but cannot join conventional system due to various reasons. The distance education system, on account of its greater flexibility regarding time of learning, pace of learning, and even educational background of the learner, coupled with its ability to accommodate a much larger student population, is gaining popularity rapidly. Development of distance education system has been greatly contributing towards the expansion of education, especially in the field of higher education. Through their regional or study centers, they are actively providing education that includes even professional courses. There are facilities to take care of the practical component too, and hence courses in science, engineering, medicine, nursing, teacher training, etc. offered through the distance mode are quite common today. Now let us move to the next point, non-formal education, NFE. Non-formal education, NFE, comprises systematic and organized educational activities that are carried out outside the framework of the formal system of education. It mainly intends to serve those who cannot or could not attend the educational system, especially the dropouts. It also intends to provide education to those pursuing an occupation so that they may function in a better manner. It aims is at generating awareness of contemporary social issues that concerns us, like AIDS. It thus provides need-based education to the particular section of society. Different media are used to provide non-formal education. The sixth five-year plan emphasized its need, and from rural areas it has reached urban slums, hilly areas, deserts, tribal areas, etc. Assistance is provided to the state governments for running NFE centers by the central government. The National Policy on Education 1986 stressed the need for non-formal education for school dropouts, girls, children who could not attend school, and other such people deprived of regular educational facilities. Apart from the print medium, electronic media like radio, television, audio, and video cassettes, toll-free telephonic helplines, etc., are used to impart non-formal education. The educational programs offered through the non-formal mode thus commonly aim to generate awareness, develop literacy, and enhance competency in those who are pursuing an occupation. It is provided by the government organization as well as by the non-government ones. Even formal education institution may be provider of non-formal education. For instance, that provided to farmers, teachers, etc. through the extension services of universities, and colleges. Here we wind up this conversation, and thank you so much for choosing this podcast.